Tonight you're going to turn on a stove, boil water, fry something in oil, or slide a tray into an oven. You won't think about it. It'll take maybe 20 minutes and you'll eat something warm and soft and already halfway broken down before it even touches your tongue. Every other species on this planet eats what it finds. Raw, cold, exactly as nature made it. You are the only animal in 4 billion years of life on Earth that transforms food before eating it. Not one other species does this. Not dolphins, not chimpanzees, not crows who are smart enough to use tools and solve puzzles. Just us. And the scientists who figured out why had to rewrite the entire story of what made us human. Let's start with the body because the body doesn't lie. Your gut is small. Embarrassingly small for a primate your size. A chimpanzee has a digestive tract roughly 3 times larger than yours relative to body weight. Gorillas have even more. Their entire torso is basically a fermentation chamber, a long, slow processing plant designed to grind raw leaves and raw fruit into usable energy over many hours. Yours isn't. Your small intestine is short, your colon is compressed, your stomach acid is strong, but your gut overall is optimized for food that has already been partially broken down before it arrives, which means your digestive system was built around the assumption that something would happen to your food before you ate it. Your body evolved expecting cooked meals, not as a luxury, as a requirement. This is what Harvard biologist Richard Wrangham spent 20 years trying to get the scientific world to take seriously. In 1999, Wrangham published a theory he called the cooking hypothesis. His argument was not that cooking was useful. Everyone agreed on that. His argument was that cooking was the cause, that without fire and cooked food, the anatomical changes that define modern humans, our large brains, our small guts, our reduced jaw muscles, our shorter teeth, none of them make biological sense. You don't evolve a smaller digestive system unless your food is already easier to process. You don't grow a brain that burns 20% of your body's calories unless you have a calorie source dense enough to fuel it. Wrangham's claim was that the human body is not the starting point of the cooking story. It is the result. For most of his career, other scientists pushed back. The fossil evidence for controlled fire only went back about 400,000 years. The anatomical changes that separate us from other apes go back closer to 1.8 million years. If cooking caused those changes, fire had to be older, much older. And then in 2011, a team of archaeologists working in Wonderwork Cave in South Africa found it. Burned bone fragments and plant ash, pushed back to 1 million years ago. Then microscopic analysis revealed something even older beneath that. Evidence of fire use stretching back nearly 1.8 million years. Right to the moment the anatomy started changing. Wrangham had been right. The timeline fit. Fire didn't follow the evolution of modern humans. Fire drove it. But here's what that actually means. And this is the part that gets strange. Cooking is not just heating food. Cooking is pre-digestion. When you apply heat to raw meat, the proteins unfold. The long tangled chains of amino acids straighten out and become easier for your enzymes to grab onto. The same thing happens to starch in plants. Raw starch granules are tightly packed and hard to break apart. Heat them and they swell, burst, and become almost immediately absorbable. A raw potato gives your body roughly 30% of its listed calories. A cooked potato gives you nearly 100. You are not eating more food. You are extracting dramatically more energy from the same food. Your ancestors didn't just discover a better way to eat. They discovered a way to get more out of the world than the world was offering. And the body noticed. Once ancestors were consistently eating cooked food, the selective pressure on large guts disappeared. A massive digestive system is expensive. It takes enormous energy to run. If cooked food meant you no longer needed it, the individuals with slightly smaller guts spent less energy on digestion and had more left over for everything else. Over generations, guts shrank. Jaw muscles that once had to crush raw tubers and tear raw meat reduced in size. Teeth got smaller, and the energy freed up from all of that went somewhere. It went to the brain. The human brain is the most metabolically expensive organ in the known animal kingdom relative to body size. It runs continuously even when you sleep. It is the reason you need 3 meals a day when a python can eat once a month. And for millions of years, that brain was impossible. There simply wasn't enough reliable caloric density in raw food to build it and run it at the same time. Cooking broke that ceiling. Cooked food gave our ancestors enough surplus energy to grow a brain that could plan, remember, imagine, and communicate in ways no other species ever had. Every thought you have ever had was made possible by a fire someone kept alive 1 million years ago. And then it got complicated, because food is never just fuel. The moment you have cooked food, you have something that takes time to prepare, something that can be stolen, something that one individual has and another wants. And this is where anthropologists believe cooking didn't just change our biology. It changed our social structure entirely. Raw food you eat where you find it. Alone. usually or in competition with whoever else is nearby. Chimps do this. They find a fig, they eat it standing there, and they move on. There is no reason to share because there is no fixed meal. But cooked food anchors you to a place. It requires a fire. It requires time. It requires you to stay. And the anthropological record suggests that once cooking became central to survival, it pulled our ancestors into something that had never existed before. A home base, a fixed location where a group returned at the end of the day, where food was prepared and divided, where fire had to be maintained through the night, where you had to cooperate with the same people day after day or go hungry. The campfire is not just where we cooked, it is where we became social in the modern sense of the word. It is where division of labor began, some hunting, some gathering, someone tending the fire. It is where the expectation of sharing food created the first social contracts. Anthropologist Polly Weissner, who spent years studying the Ju-Huanzi Bushmen of the Kalahari, found that the most important social negotiations in the community happened around the fire at night. Who ate what, who contributed, who owed whom. The cooked meal was not just nutrition, it was the original social institution. But there's one more layer to this, and it's the one nobody talks about. Chimpanzees have been observed carrying meat toward fire in the wild. Not to cook it, just carrying it near flames. Researchers watched and waited. The chimps never made the connection. They never placed the meat in the fire deliberately. They never waited for it to cook. They ate it raw. The capacity to observe fire and connect it to the transformation of food is not just intelligence. It requires something else. The ability to imagine a future state, to look at a raw thing and picture it as something different, to delay gratification long enough to wait for the change. That is not just a survival skill. That is the cognitive root of every technology humans have ever built. We looked at fire and asked what it could do. We looked at raw meat and imagined it cooked. We looked at a rock and imagined a tool. We looked at the sky and imagined we could reach it. Every single thing we have ever made started with that same capacity, the ability to see what isn't there yet. Cooking didn't just feed us, it trained us to think that way. So here is what actually happened the first time one of your ancestors dropped raw meat into flames and ate what came out. They didn't just discover a better meal, they started a chain reaction that shrank their gut, grew their brain, built their first social structures, invented the concept of home, created the conditions for language and storytelling, and encoded in every generation that followed a way of thinking about the world that no other species has ever managed. The warm food on your plate tonight is the end of a line that stretches back 1,000,000 years. Your kitchen is a direct descendant of a fire burning in a cave in South Africa before your species technically existed. Every other animal on this planet eats the world as it is. You are the only one who ever decided to change it first.